What's good?
Hey everyone.
What it do? What's poppin'? Her name is Ebony.
His name is Eugene.
Today's topic is stop giving the enemy power.
Stop it.
Let's just stop it.
Let's stop it.
3G, 3G, 3G. Yeah. I do what I do. I do what I do. You do it through me. 3G, I do it for you. I do it for you. Giving you all of me. 3G, I do what I do. I do what I do. You do it through me. 3G, I do it for you. I do it for you. Giving you all of me. 3G, 3G. Giving 3G. God, 3G. Glory, 3G.
Go ahead and get it started.
All right, so a lot of times when I'm speaking to people that I know, whether it's a good conversation or maybe an interesting conversation, for some reason, the enemy is always brought up. And I was asking my husband, I'm like, why do people always bring up the enemy all the time, even in a positive conversation? Like, why does the enemy have to even be brought up in the conversation? For me personally, I feel as though if you are focusing on positive things and you're feeding positive things, more of that is what's going to come to pass. But if you're talking about the enemy all the time and what he's doing all the time, you're feeding that energy, and that's not good energy. That's negative energy. So I always ask my husband, like, why does everyone always bring up the enemy?
So, keep in mind, we are aware there is an enemy. We are aware he comes to kill, steal, and destroy.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also aware he has limited power.
He has no teeth.
He has no teeth. All bark, no bite. Think about this. The enemy cannot do anything in our lives unless God allows it or we allow it.
Mm-hmm.
He cannot just do anything that he wants to do in our lives. So let's think about that.
Yeah.
So if God is permitting the enemy to do something in our lives, as with Job, I can look at it as the enemy's doing this, the enemy's doing that, the enemy's trying to mess this up, or we can look at it as God is trying to grow me in this area.
Yes.
God is strengthening me. God
Yes.
is increasing my faith.
Yes.
So I never understood, if the enemy is beneath us, if he's under our feet, why are we always speaking about him as if he has real control? We speak about the enemy more than we do God at times.
And that's not okay.
It's not.
No.
Why are we worried about what the enemy is trying to do more than we're worried about what God is doing? When you're in your purpose, when you're walking in fulfillment and doing what God has called you to do, you don't have to worry about the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's think about if it's something that we allow the enemy to do. That's when we need to examine ourselves.
Yeah.
There could be something that we are doing or not doing, someone we're around or not around, that could be allowing the enemy to come into our lives by what we're watching, where we're at, where we're going, or the things that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So even if that's the situation, I still have no reason to focus on the enemy.
No.
I need to focus on me,
Right.
my actions,
Yes.
my thoughts,
Yes.
what I'm feeding myself, because as my wife said, what you feed yourself is what grows.
Yeah. And if we're talking about the enemy all the time, then what's going to grow?
The enemy. So we're not saying he's not there,
Yeah.
or just ignore him, never rebuke him or cast him out.
We're not saying that.
We're just saying once you do that, it's done.
And to focus on what is good for us. Focus on love, peace, joy, everything that God has given onto us. No matter what the situation is, if we have the victory, then we need to walk in that.
If we have the victory, why are we worried about someone who's trying to steal our victory? We should be focused on the victory.
And, I get it. I do get it because, there was a point in my life where I would always bring up the enemy all the time. I'm like, the enemy is doing this. And I always had someone to blame. I always had the enemy to blame and not take accountability of my own actions. And so it's like we have to examine ourselves, just like you said, babe. And we need to focus on the right things and not the wrong things. We shouldn't be focusing on the enemy. We need to be focusing on what God wants for us, purpose, plan, goals, dreams, aspirations, positive things that uplift us, not things that are going to put us down.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. So, let's stop focusing on the enemy. Let's stop focusing on the things that aren't going right, things that aren't going how we want them to go. Take things for how they are and utilize it and do the best with it as you can.
Yes.
And make changes to things you can make changes to.
Make changes.
That you need to do.
Yes.
That's all we can do, and that's the best thing we should be doing.
And we shouldn't be using the enemy as an excuse for everything. Like, oh, I can't go to the gym. Oh, the enemy is in the way. Like, no, like, that's you.
That's a very good point. Sometimes when we're blaming the enemy, it's something that we're doing.
Yeah.
I can get into a car accident as I'm driving and say the enemy did that, but I was on my phone texting as I was driving.
Right.
So sometimes we use the enemy to remove ourselves from this situation so we have someone to blame.
Yeah, so we have someone to blame. But we need to take accountability of our own actions.
Take accountability and thank the Lord for what he's doing.
Yes.
Because if he's truly in control, don't all things work together for our good?
Right, at the end of the day.
So why are we blaming the enemy for something that works for our good? We're waiting for an answer.
We're waiting. All right, you guys. So again, we understand that there is an enemy. Like, we are not doubting that. We're not saying that there is not an enemy. But the thing is, we just need to change our focus. What are we focused on? Are we focused on what the enemy is doing? Or are we focused on what God is doing?
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Change your focus. Change your perspective. Stop blaming. Take accountability. Make the most out of every situation that comes into our lives. Keep moving forward.
And let's be happy. Like, God is doing great things in our lives. Let's focus on that.
I refuse to give the enemy credit when God is doing so many great things in the world and in our lives.
Yes.
Let's focus on God, the love, the peace.
Yes.
More than we focus on what the enemy is trying to do.
And you guys, let's not bring up the enemy if we're having a positive conversation.
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
If he that is in us is greater than he in the world, let's enjoy our lives.
Yes.
And make the most out of it and continue to grow and better ourselves.
Yes.
And that's all we should do.
Yes.
So, with that being said, we're not going to make it longer than it needs to be. If you're feeling the vibe, like and subscribe.
Yes.
And if you're not,
just leave us a thumbs up.
that'll work. And we out.